Right, just finished Sweet Francais by Irene Nemirovsky, published in 2006, written between 1941 and 1942, when Irene was in her late 30s. She was sent to Auschwitz and died October 1942. She never seen the end of the war. But in her time in France, you could read all about her history on Wikipedia. In her time in France, she wrote this book. And it's pretty thick, but it's not entirely the story. The story is said to be incomplete. She was arrested a year after 1942. Right? She was arrested well after the time period that she placed this book. Yeah, she was born 1903, died 1942. Died at 39. But she wrote it in a manuscript. Yeah, she wrote it in a manuscript, and it wasn't discovered. It was like just left unread. An unread manuscript for 60 years, over 60 years. And then the translator, the translator's name, from French, translated from French to English. It was originally published in French, translated by Sandra Smith. So this was the story of the French experience when Germany invaded and occupied the area. And we have individual stories that were fiction, but very real, because Irene was actually going through this at the time. So she was making up her fiction while actually living the non-fiction part of the reality. Okay, and it's based on probably stories she's heard and stuff. The non-fiction stuff is put at the end, and it starts with the appendix. So it's about a 367 page story that it seems like it has an end, and I don't know if maybe the translator may have used their own creative approach, but it seems like it has an end to it. But it's been said that it's just an unfinished novel. But the rest, this last portion is correspondences for Irene. She was writing and saying that it was tough living in France and getting tougher, and then her last letter was from captivity in what was thought to be somewhere in France, a concentration camp in France. But then she was shipped with a lot of other Jews, which she wasn't exactly. She converted to Catholicism, but it was completely unrecognized by the Germans. And she was a part of the Russian Bolshevik Revolution, and you can read all about it. But you see her correspondences, and then the last one is when she was in captivity. Her husband wrote a lot of correspondences after that we could read. Michael Epstein. He was writing, just worried, where's my wife? Writing to all kinds of people trying to pull strings. And eventually he was captured by the French police and then turned over to the Germans too. Being like a non-national Jew, because they weren't exactly born in France, they were born in Russia. And he was sent to the gas chamber immediately. Irene died in August, he died in October, something like that, in separate concentration camps, captured at separate times. But in the time since when the Germans took over, she starts out the story with the French running for their lives, talking about a lot of the rich people having to give up a lot and just leave, people having trouble with cars breaking down, leaving cars on the side of the road, stuff on the side of the road, running out of gas, people stealing gas from each other, and then the Russians moving in, and actually moving into people's homes, and then we have the interactions with these young, sometimes late teens, early 20s, German soldiers, many who could speak French, like the translators, conversing with the French. There was some love that developed between the French and Germans. The young French girls, their French men were in camps or were captives, so they had to find joy in some way, and the German soldiers brought some joy. It was that bittersweet joy. One of the themes Irene she mentioned towards the end of the book too in her notes. If you want to learn about how to write a book, you can read her notes in the end here. She gives a lot of interesting tidbits. One of them was the contrast between the individual and the collective allegiance you have to the greater good. That's the Germans. They, for example, there's a French guy who killed a German soldier and was hidden and all that. But the German soldier's reaction to that was, well, you know, it's terrible that we lost one of our soldiers. We can't trust the French as much. We thought we could. We thought we were being nice to them, taking over the country, and then being nice, buying their things and all this. That a German soldier dies, and then they kind of question their sense of individualism, and the collective group that they serve, the greater good of the collective group, the military, Germany in general. They serve Germany as a collective group rather than individuals. So the German soldier who died didn't exactly die in vain. He died for Germany, in a way, a sense of that collectivism. To insult the Germans, the French tried not to use the words Fritz and Boches. I don't know if that could be seen. Fritz? I mean, there's people in America named Fritz. So that's interesting to me. Pianos make unique sounds. There's a section where the German soldier was playing music for the young lady whose husband was in a German camp, and he was talking about how piano musical sounds can give different feelings, just your emotions and whatever. It can bring out different emotions. That's what music does. People weren't allowed to have guns. If you did, you could get shot, and that's part of the reason why the Frenchmen shot the Germans, is because somebody told on him to say they had a gun hidden on his farm. Very good reading, though. It's really hard to explain. This picture was taken in the 1940s. This guy was a French revolutionist. It's explained in the book towards the end, and that's his fiancée. He was eventually captured and killed, but you know, this picture became pretty famous itself. It's a very different. This picture, you know, is a part of the World War II era, but it has nothing to do with Irene or the story. But it's definitely a powerful image of the French resistance to the German occupation.